There's a Silverado on a flatbed outside a dealership with 11,000 miles on the odometer. Nobody wrecked it. The paint is perfect. The tires still have the little rubber nubs on them from the mold. The engine inside it is scrap metal. And the owner is standing on the sidewalk filming it with his phone because he already knows that nobody is going to believe him. Here's what you need to understand before we go one step further. The title says 12 GM trucks and SUVs owners regret buying, engine failures ranked. And you're probably assuming that if something this big were wrong, there would be a recall, and a recall means somebody fixed it. I'm going to be straight with you, because that's the deal on this channel. A recall is not a repair. On the biggest engine failure story in America right now, covering nearly 600,000 trucks and SUVs, the remedy General Motors chose for most of those owners is an oil change. Thicker oil. That is it. And on January 16, 2026, federal investigators opened a brand new file on that remedy because engines that already received the fix are still dying. By the end of this, you will know all 12 vehicles rank from merely annoying to genuinely catastrophic. You will know exactly which part breaks and why. And you will know how to check your own truck tonight. Stay for the number General Motors had to print in its own annual report, because that single number tells you how deep this actually goes. Let me lay the foundation first, because without this one idea, none of the 12 makes sense. Every engine in your driveway is running on a film of oil thinner than a human hair. Down at the bottom of the engine, the crankshaft spins inside soft metal shells called rod bearings. The crank never actually touches those bearings. It rides on a wedge of pressurized oil a few thousandths of an inch thick. That wedge is the entire reason an engine can run 300,000 miles. Every other part in there is just holding that oil film in place. Two things destroy that film. The first is dirt. Not road dirt, manufacturing dirt. Metal shavings, casting grit, machining sediment left inside the engine at the factory, circulating through the oil passages until it finds the tightest gap in the whole machine. That gap is the rod bearing. The second thing is dimension. If the crankshaft journal is machined a hair out of round, or the surface finish is a hair too rough, that oil wedge cannot form properly no matter how clean your oil is. When the film breaks down, it does not gradually get worse. There is no warning light, no noise the day before, no fair chance to pull over. The bearing wipes, the connecting rod hammers itself loose, and at highway speed that rod can come straight through the side of the block. Federal investigators put it in writing in their own file. They said there is no detectability prior to the failure. Hold on to that because it explains why the fix is what it is. Going from 0W20 oil to 0W40 makes that film a little tougher. It buys margin. But it does not remove debris that is already inside the engine, and it does not remachine a crankshaft that left the factory out of specification. That is the difference between treating a symptom and fixing a defect. And that difference is what this entire video is built on. Because once you see it, you start seeing the same pattern in 11 other General Motors products, in the transmissions, in the 4-cylinders, in the diesels. So let me show you how the big one began. It started with people posting videos of their trucks dying in the middle of the interstate. In January 2025, the Federal Office of Defects Investigation opened a preliminary evaluation after 39 complaints came in about General Motors trucks and SUVs losing their engines with no warning. The estimated population was 877,000 vehicles. Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, Yukon XL, Escalade. The complaints described a bearing failure that could either seize the engine or breach the block with the connecting rod. In February, investigators sent General Motors a formal demand for documents and warranty records. The company responded by pointing at the size of the job, describing the sheer volume of data that had to be assessed for over 1 million vehicles spanning 6 model years. On April 24, 2025, The recall landed. Federal campaign number 25 V274. 597,630 vehicles in the United States, roughly 721,000 worldwide. Every single one of them carrying the 6.2-liter V8 that General Motors internally calls the L87, built between March 1, 2021 and May 31, 2024. And here's the part almost nobody read. In its own filing to the federal government, General Motors disclosed 28,102 field complaints of engine failure caused by crankshaft, connecting rod, or bearing failure. Of those, 14,332 alleged the vehicle lost the ability to move. 12 of those complaints alleged a crash. That is not a rumor from a forum. That is the manufacturer's own arithmetic submitted under federal law. And General Motors named the cause itself. Its own teardown analysis found two problems, and the company attributed both to what it called supplier manufacturing and quality issues. First, sediment left behind in the connecting rods and the crankshaft oil passages, grinding up the bearings from the inside. Second, crankshafts that left the factory out of specification on both dimension and surface finish. Read that again. Sediment and parts machined wrong. In the flagship V8 that goes into a $100,000 Escalade. The remedy has two doors. A dealer plugs in a scan tool and looks for one specific trouble code. If the code is there, you get a replacement engine, and General Motors has confirmed those replacements are a mix of new and remanufactured units. If the code is not there, you get the thicker oil, a new filter, a new oil cap, a page in your owner's manual, and extended coverage on the long block out to 10 years or 150,000 miles. Which means the entire system rests on one assumption, that a scan tool can identify which engines are already dying. Hold that thought, because in a few minutes I'm going to show you the federal document that says it cannot. First, the ranking. I built this list on four things: confirmed federal recalls, defects that produced actual litigation, documented complaint volume, and what the repair costs when you were the one holding the invoice. We start at the bottom with the ones that cost you an afternoon, and we climb to the one that can end at 70 miles an hour. Number 12, and this one barely earns the word regret. The 2024 through 2026 Chevrolet Trax and Buick Envista. Consumer Reports actually rates the Trax near the top of its class for predicted reliability. The real complaint is an electronic gremlin where the vehicle refuses to believe you put it in park, covered by a service bulletin, plus the fact that a 1.2-liter three-cylinder pulling a small crossover is working for a living. Annoying, cheap to fix, nobody is losing an engine. Number 11. The 2021 through 2025 Chevrolet Trailblazer and Buick Encore GX. Here we meet the continuously variable transmission General Motors put in the front-wheel drive versions of these. Owners report losing forward gear entirely, and there is a bulletin for a specific fault code covering it. There is a separate bulletin for transmission cases that leak because of a machining imperfection. Notice that word again. Machining. Same disease, smaller organ. Number 10. The 2019 through 2025 Chevrolet Equinox and GMC Terrain with the 1.5-liter turbo. Oil consumption that owners describe as a quart between changes, crankcase ventilation failures, timing chain wear. General Motors has family history here. The older 2.4-liter engine in this same nameplate produced federal settlements averaging roughly $3,300 a vehicle. No recall this time, bulletins and special coverage instead. Number 9. The 2024 Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, and Yukon with the 3.0-liter Duramax diesel. This one carries an emissions recall tied to a crankcase ventilation and control module software fault. On paper, it is a reflash, and for most owners that is genuinely all it is. I am including it for one reason. Hold on to that engine, family, because 6 spots up this list it comes back, and the second time it is not software. Number 8. Now we get expensive. The 2015 through 2019 Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Yukon, Escalade, Camaro, and Cadillac sedans with the 8-speed automatic. Owners named this one themselves. They call it the Chevy Shake. Torque converter shudder and shifts so violent that people reported thinking they had been rear-ended. There were 13 separate service bulletins, and in the litigation that followed, plaintiffs alleged that General Motors engineers proposed a fix costing about $305 per vehicle, roughly $592 million total, and the company declined it for years. On June 27, 2025, the full Sixth Circuit vacated class certification in that case by a vote of 9-7, unwinding a class of roughly 800,000 owners. Number 7. The 2019 through 2025 trucks and SUVs with the 10-speed automatic. Harsh shifts, shudder at steady cruising speed, valve body wear, and a message on the dash telling you the transmission is unable to shift. A class action is active as of this year. Repair shops have reported valve body parts backed up 8 to 12 weeks, with repairs landing near $6,000. On a vehicle you are still making payments on. Number 6. The 2023 through 2025 Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon with the 2.7-liter Turbo 4. Camshaft and valve train failures, carbon buildup, and high-pressure fuel pump problems serious enough that General Motors launched a customer satisfaction program for fuel injectors in February 2024, plus a service update reprogramming the control module for injector flow. There are owner reports of cracked blocks in a brand new mid-size truck. Number 5. The same 2.7-liter engine, but now in the full-size 2019 through 2022 Silverado and Sierra. Identical hardware, heavier vehicle, more time under boost, more heat in the valve train. There are documented owner reports of camshaft failure in the low 80,000s of miles, which on a work truck is barely broken in. Same engine, harder job, ranked worse for exactly that reason. Number 4, and this one has been quietly eating engines for a decade. The 2014 through 2021 Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Escalade with the cylinder deactivation system on the 5.3 and 6.2-liter V8s. The lifters collapse. A collapsed lifter bends a pushrod. The bent pushrod wipes the camshaft lobe. The camshaft sheds metal into the oil, and now every bearing in the engine is drinking shrapnel. A consolidated class action has been running in federal court in Michigan since December 2021, and in March 2026, the court declined to split those claims apart. Repairs commonly run $4,000 to $7,000. If it went far enough, a replacement engine runs $8,000 to $16,000, and General Motors never issued a recall for it. Bulletins and coverage letters instead. Now here's where it stops being a list and starts being a warning. Number 3. The 2025 and 2026 Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, and Yukon with the 3.0-liter Duramax inline 6. Owners and independent shops are reporting catastrophic failures traced to a thrust bearing problem and excessive crankshaft end play. The failures are happening between roughly 1,000 and 7,500 miles, some of them while towing. On October 1, 2025, General Motors issued a technical service bulletin with inspection steps and put a stop sale on affected dealer stock. Sit with that for a second. A stop sale means the company will not let its own dealers sell them, but no safety recall for the ones already in driveways. Number 2. the trucks and SUVs that got the exact same engine and got left out of the recall. Model years 2019 through 2021, plus a slice of 2024, all built outside the recall window. Same 6.2-liter V8, same rod bearing failure, same ending. In October 2025, federal investigators upgraded their probe to an engineering analysis covering 286,051 of them. By that point, investigators had logged 1,157 reports of engine bearing failure, and 173 of those were on vehicles the recall does not touch. If you own one of these, you are in an investigation, not a campaign. No letter is coming, no extended coverage. Same danger, no safety net. And number 1, the 2021 through 2024 Silverado 1500, Sierra 1500, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, Yukon XL, Escalade, and Escalade ESV with the L87 6.2-liter V8. 153,000 Sierras, 107,000 Silverados, 82,000 Yukons, nearly 80,000 Escalades. And this is the federal file I opened this video with. On January 16, 2026, investigators launched a recall query asking one question: does the fix actually work? They were holding 36 complaints from owners whose engines failed after the recall remedy had already been performed. The file states that the complaints allege failures of both remedies. Both, meaning not just the oil change. The replacement engines are failing too. That is the loop closing. A recall is not a repair. Now let me show you the number I promised you, because it is in General Motors' own annual report. At the end of 2025, the company's product warranty liability stood at $13.631 billion. A year earlier, it was $10.571 billion. Warranty adjustments for problems the company had already booked jumped from about $1.2 billion to over $3.2 billion in a single year. On the earnings call, the chief financial officer said this recall alone raised warranty costs by $300 million year over year, and that the company expected to spend roughly $500 million in a single quarter fixing them. He also said on the record that they are not happy with their warranty trend. $13.6 billion is not a public relations problem. That is a company writing down what it knows is coming. And that brings us to the part that actually matters. Follow the money. General Motors did not design a bad engine. The 6.2-liter V8 is a good design, and that is exactly the point. This failure did not happen on a drawing board. It happened on a production line, in the gap between what a blueprint says and what a supplier actually ships, on parts sourced from vendors the company itself named in its recall filing. Machining tolerance is a cost. Cleanliness of a casting is a cost. Inspecting every crankshaft instead of sampling them is a cost. And every one of those costs sits on a spreadsheet in front of somebody whose job is to make that number smaller before the quarter closes. There was never a meeting where somebody decided to build a bad engine. There was a chain of ordinary decisions, each one defensible by itself, each one shaving a fraction off a part that has to be perfect, signed off by people who will never meet the man on the sidewalk filming his truck go up on a hook. The savings landed that quarter. The bill landed 4 years later, $13 billion at a time. The owners pay it in a currency the spreadsheet never tracks. Consumer Reports now flags the 2021 Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, and Yukon XL among used vehicles to avoid, and predicts the 2025 Tahoe will be less reliable than the average new car. Every class action filed over this engine lists diminished resale value as a core claim, because buyers now check the engine code before they check the mileage. And that 10-year coverage General Motors extended on the long block is the company quietly conceding the stigma is real. And the people underneath that number are living something else entirely. Shai Eisenman runs a car service in the Twin Cities. The 6.2 in her 2023 Escalade ESV lost its lifters. She told a reporter, "We are the canaries in the coal mine." She described hunting for a replacement engine as the Hunger Games, and said a dealer told her she had no hope of getting one because she did not have enough pull with the ownership. 5 weeks in, she was out roughly $30,000, and she bought a Suburban just to keep her business running. That is what happens when the pipeline of replacement engines runs dry and 600,000 people are standing in the same line. Then there is the detail that I keep coming back to, and it is the one that should end any argument about whether this is a maintenance problem. A 2023 Cadillac Escalade, bought back by General Motors, was torn down publicly by an independent shop in Utah. That engine failed at 4 miles. 4. The cause was a wrist pin installed improperly at the factory. Not neglect, not the wrong oil, not skipped services. 4 miles. So here is what I want you to actually do with all this. First, go run your vehicle identification number through the Federal Recall Lookup tonight for free, and do it again in 6 months, because these campaigns keep expanding. And if your 6.2 was built outside that recall window, understand that you are in an investigation, not a campaign, and behave accordingly. Second, if you got the oil change remedy, do not treat it as a cure. Get an oil analysis at every change. And yes, I told you investigators found no detectability prior to failure. They meant from the driver's seat. A lab looking for copper and lead is a different instrument than your ear, and it can catch bearing material while the truck still drives fine. Third, document everything. Every visit, every complaint, every noise in writing, because the coverage extension and every lawsuit that follows will turn on paperwork you either kept or did not. Fourth, if you are shopping right now, buy the engine, not the badge. The naturally aspirated 5.3 without cylinder deactivation and the older 6-speed have quietly outlived almost everything ranked above them. Because here is the real loss. A truck engine is one of the last honest machines a regular person can own. The pushrod V8 is an architecture General Motors has been refining for 70 years, and built correctly, it will run past 300,000 miles without complaining. It did not stop being capable of that. It stopped being built like it. And a $100,000 Escalade that grenades at 4 miles because of a wrist pin is not a story about engineering. It is a story about how many of them went out the door before anybody stopped the line. Now tell me in the comments, and be honest, because this is the one subject where everybody has a number they do not say out loud. What do you drive? How many miles are on it? And has it been in for the recall yet? And if you have had one of these engines fail, tell me what the dealer told you and how long you waited. Those stories teach more than any federal filing I can read to you, and half my next videos come straight out of what you leave down there. If this channel earns its keep with you, hit subscribe, because next time we are doing the one you have been asking for. 10 cars American insurers are quietly totaling instead of repairing, and why a bumper tap on a modern truck can end the vehicle. That Silverado on the flatbed at the top of this video had 11,000 miles on it. Keep yours until the odometer gives up before the frame does. I will see you in the next one.